Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Amara Muzammil, and today we are going to talk about again the series which was titled as Career Options for Pharmacists, which is going to be a guide for fresh graduates of pharmacy, and we hope that it's going to be very beneficial and helpful for the students, for the graduates of pharmacy. So today we have Ms. Sadia Virgis with us, who is currently working as a senior research coordinator at Aga Khan Department of Clinical Trials Unit, and we are very honored to have you on board today, Sadia. Thank you so much for your time. And we would love to learn from you. And we'll get the insights specifically as a pharmacist, because many people know about the clinical research, right? But they're very confused. As a pharmacist, how can they start on this journey? And what is it all about? And what role they can play? So it would be very great, inshallah, if are going to help us through this. So first of all, I would like you to introduce yourself, like formally, if you can tell us about your graduation, your past experiences, and your journey so far.
Assalamu alaikum, Amara. Thank you so much for having me. It's my honor to be here, to be very honest. Okay, to quickly start or to quickly give my introduction, I did my Doctor of Pharmacy in 2015, and then I continued my education in MPhil Pharmacology. I completed that around in 2020. Before completing that, I had already joined a clinical trial center in University of Karachi. It's a part of ICCBS. It's known as Center for Bioequivalence and Clinical Research, CBSCR. I joined there as a research assistant in quality assurance department, and our major focus was on bioequivalence and bioavailability trials. So that was my first exposure towards clinical trials. From there, I moved to research associate quality assurance. Then I was manager quality assurance. Then I worked there for more than 3 years. Then in 2023, I shifted to Aachen as senior research coordinator. It's been 2 years working here now, and recently I was promoted. I was also given an additional designation of regulatory lead. Sorry.
Okay. It's very interesting. As you have started that you begin your journey as a research assistant, and the studies mainly you work on were about bioequivalence studies. This is what you say. So if you can briefly tell people about what these studies are, and then what's the difference between BE study and then now you are working on clinical trial studies. So is there any difference between two?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big major difference. So technically, this all involves clinical research. It's all involved in the world of clinical research. But we have different, just like we have different phases of a clinical trial, similarly, we have different types of clinical research studies. And of course, it's absolutely possible that one clinical trial center has expertise in a certain kind or in a certain type of clinical research, right? So CBSCR, it was built up actually for developing and for exploring more the bioequivalence and bioavailability studies. It was actually its foundation was for making sure that all the drugs that are being manufactured in Pakistan and being marketed, they can also be sold and they can also be complied to international guidelines. And for that, they need to make their drug pass through the bioequivalence and bioavailability trials, so that it can be established that yes, this comparator drug or the international autotype drug is actually the one that we are developing is equivalent to that. Its work is equivalent to that. Its efficacy is equivalent to that, or its safety is equivalent to the international drug. So this is what basically we do in bioequivalence and bioavailability. Like the people who have, like for example, our pharmacy people or pharmacy graduates, they already know what bioequivalence and bioavailability is. So we need to see that, okay, fine, how much the ratio of this drug is in the blood. Is it comparable to the comparator or autotype drug that we are evaluating it against? Then bioavailability, how much it is available, everything that involves, like, you must remember all the things we learned in pharmacology initially and pharmacodynamics. Exactly. What is the half-life? When is it reaching the exact target? What kind of dosage form it should be in? How much time will it take to get absorbed? How much drug will be, eliminated, and how much drug will be pass through the liver and everything. So we would be researching that criteria. Basically, it only targeted healthy volunteers because you are technically just evaluating the safety and the availability of a clinical drug, of an already marketed clinical drug in healthy volunteers, just to see if it's absolutely comparable to the international prototype or international comparator drug that's already available internationally.
Right.
So this was what we used to do in CBSE. Then, to be very honest, the scope of CBSCR enhanced a little, and because it was the time of COVID in 2020, so we were also then exposed towards some international clinical trials. CBSCR became a CRO itself as well. So we were also exposed towards international clinical trials. The COVID vaccine trials, there was a huge number of COVID vaccine trials coming to Pakistan. So the first technique, it's very interesting. The first Sinovac trial, I guess it was Sinovac vaccine trial, that happened through our center. That was the first registered clinical trial regarding COVID vaccines. And then, yeah, we transitioned to a lot of different trials as well from there. So I had exposure of clinical trials, of international clinical trials from there as well. And when I shifted to CTU, so CTU, technically clinical trial unit of our university, this is technically solely for international clinical trials. Mainly, we are only dealing in therapeutic fields. Like, for example, there is oncology, there's hepatitis, there's gastric issues and stuff. So our major focus is on therapeutic clinical trials. Clinical trials that are already in phase 2 or phase 3, and it requires Pakistani population involvement as well. So those trials are conducted through our unit.
Okay. So, Darshadia, is it right to say at this point that either it is BE studies or it is a clinical trial? So basically, pharma industries who want to conduct these studies, they approach these centers, like for example, CTU, a drug trial, a pharmacy, basically a pharma industry wants to have data for phase 2 and phase 3 studies. So they are going to approach the clinical trials unit, and they have all these expertise, they have these resources and facilities. They are going to conduct these phases of the clinical trial for them, and then they're going to provide the data to these pharma industries, which is going to help them to develop the data for further development. Is
Yeah,
it right?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But just one thing, normally what happens is our main clientele, you can say, is international sponsors, right? International pharmaceutical manufacturers. So what they do, and even the local pharmaceutical manufacturers are uh, developing the same practice now, that they usually contact a CRO, that is a clinical or a contract research organization. So the CRO actually acts as a middle person who connects the sponsor, that is the manufacturing company, and the investigator sites. They together, they are the main link between them. Normally, this is what's happening. And they are responsible for site activation. They're responsible for everything, for monitoring and for reviewing whatever the site is doing. So, so yes, absolutely, the main sponsoring responsibilities lies with the sponsors. Like, they fund the entire program, they fund the entire clinical trial unit, provide the investigative products and everything. But the review, the monitoring, the constant oversee or oversight of investigator site, because there are a lot of investigator sites. And sometimes it's impossible for one for a sponsor, because they also have a number of people, only a number of people in their departments as well. So it's impossible to overlook the entire thing. So now contract research organizations like IQVIA and ARK Pharma Solutions, they are now working primarily for only this. And of course, they were made only for this, in order to provide their services to the sponsors and to the site, just to streamline the entire process.
All right. Okay. I think at this time, I assume that people can have this confusion that when we know that a industry, they're very well funded, right? They have the departments for every section already established, and standards are there, SOPs are there. So why do there is a need of a clinical trial separately established and then function, and then do all this work for these pharma industries and then provide them data? So what is the need? Similarly for the BE studies as well, what is the need there?
So the thing is that, for example, like, you're asking this from the investigator side of point of view or from the CRO side of point of view? Like,
From
why is there a need of investigator sites to be there and provide them this data?
what is the need of CTUs in the ecosystem?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, fine. So the thing is that sponsors can, like, they have huge R&D departments, right? Especially the international pharma sponsors, and they can do everything regarding drug development. But in a lab, in order to see and in order to evaluate that what is the drug's efficacy, safety, availability, and the entire toxic profile, and how much does it really work in a human body, they need to contact investigator sites. And investigator sites, I mean hospitals where those patients, particular to those diseases, they are there. They come to their doctors, they come to investigators, and they approach them for their treatment, of course. So for that, now, no sponsor will just contact a hospital site and will want to run a trial, because there are a lot of regulations now. So ICH GCP, and of course our national regulation draft rules, everything, all these guidelines now require a clinical trial unit to be set up in a hospital setting, so that it can run the research functions from there. So what we do is we ensure that, yes, for example, of course, the principal investigator would only be the person who has expertise in the medical treatment or in the medical field of that particular disease. But the rest of the team, the one responsible for taking care of patient medical care or taking care of a lot of regulatory work and documentation work, they are actually from the clinical trial unit. So this was actually the need in order to streamline or in order to regularize the entire processes, because someone needs to make sure that documentation is being processed correctly. The documentation is according to the GCP guideline, because after all, we are working for clinical trials. Someone needs to make sure that yes, these are the patient source data and this is placed here. So these entire needs actually gave rise to the idea of clinical trial units. And internationally, there are millions of clinical trial units all over the world working in a hospital setting, and specifically only related to the clinical research work.
Right. So thank you. You have actually answered it in very detail. I hope it has helped the
Yeah,
people who are listening. So yeah, it's mainly also because this counts, the clinical trial phases also count as a human subject research,
yeah,
and you need patients. And the best place to do it is with the
hospital.
CTUs who are associated with some hospital. That's the best place to do it. That is why pharma industries cannot do this step, and
Absolutely.
they are asking CTUs to run it for them.
There's no way
Uh,
that you can reach the patient population, the
yeah.
exact patient population that they require for their drug to be tested
Yes.
in sitting in a pharmaceutical company, of
Because
course.
it's not about the patient recruitment only, because you have to continually monitor them as well. When you are giving them these
Yes,
drugs, you have to monitor them, you have to assess them, and that can only be done by a
absolutely,
physician.
absolutely.
So you have to
Because
see if they are not having any adverse events, and then you have to medically intervene and all. So it's not
the
possible for
entire
a pharma
medical care
industry.
can only be processed through a hospital, of
Yes.
course. Yes.
So it's needed here. So if you want to, we actually like that you make us walk through your daily or day-to-day task. What are your
Okay.
major responsibilities, and what tasks you are being assigned, and being a senior research coordinator, what are the expectations with you? So if somebody hears you, they can picture that, okay, coming into this role, we are being expected to do this and all.
Okay. So I would say that working as a senior research coordinator, it involves a lot of background experience that I already have had within different roles, of
Hmm.
course. But if I tell you exactly what I do as a senior research coordinator in clinical trial unit, so basically I'm responsible for the conduct of a clinical trial or of sometimes a few multiple clinical trials.
Hmm.
Basically, their conduct in the hospital setting. So, for example, if I have a trial that specifically is focused on oncology treatment or on some kind of cancer treatment, so what happens is I'm responsible for the entire regulatory processes. Like, for example, we have to take multiple approvals from different regulatory authorities. That involves our institutional review board. Normally, it is known as ethics review committee in AKU, but it can have a different institutional name. Then we have to take our approval, that clinical trials approval from National Bioethics Committee, that is a national level regulatory authority overlooking the ethics of what we are doing in clinical research. Then we have to move towards DRAP, Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan. We need to ensure that all the trials that are running at our unit need to be approved from DRAP. So we are involved in the regulatory processes like that. Then there's this big part of maintaining and executing that clinical trial at a hospital setting. So what happens is we are responsible for making sure the recruitment is taking place, the right kind of patients are being recruited, the how the consent is being taken. A very important part to be of our lives, to be very honest. Then what kind of IP, the right kind of IP is going to the right patient, and all of these things. Then the monitoring of the adverse events. If a patient is coming up with, maybe they are developing a serious adverse event or adverse reaction towards a drug, how is that how is that addressed in a hospital setting, what we are doing for them, being in constant contact, then scheduling all their visits according to the protocol, making sure the protocol compliance is there, making sure the guidelines compliance is there. So this is what we do for a clinical trial. And as part of an organization, like when you are part of an organization, so there are other organizational duties. For example, you will be responsible. For example, you can be responsible for SOP development to manage the risk of related to a certain kind of clinical trial and all these things. So what I do in a day is a small part of all of these things, maybe.
Hmm, excellent. It sounds interesting, but also feels like there are a lot on the plate of senior research coordinator, because you guys
Yeah,
have to ensure that the documentation is accurate, the patient is being taken care of, the IP dosing and everything is properly done, then
absolutely.
training of your team, SOP
Absolutely.
development,
Big
and
part, in fact.
data
Exactly. We
management
have to,
of this
and
trial.
the training, I'm so sorry I'm cutting you off, but the training is such an interactive and an ongoing process because your team can change anytime.
Yes.
And even the existing team, a lot of things you have to train them. And those are the things that you are doing yourself for the first time. So there is a lot of like for example, what I believe after working for 2 years as a coordinator, to be very honest, coordinators need to be extremely adaptive towards change and then relay that change and train that about the others as well for them to implement it and
Right.
implement it in a correct way. So it's a completely ongoing process. A lot of challenges appear in our lives or during the phase of a trial that we have never faced before, but we have to quickly find a solution or adapt towards it, and then find a way to address patient needs or to ensure the compliance is not being questioned.
Okay, Sadi. So very interestingly, my second question was about the challenges or hurdles you have faced during, this specifically as working as a senior research coordinator. So what are the major challenges and how have you tackled with it so that others
Okay.
can take lessons and, can do better?
Okay, I guess not any, alhamdulillah, not the earth-shattering challenges, but yeah,
Yeah.
day-to-day work or day-to-day routine practices do develop some challenges. For example, uh, whenever we are, because in clinical trial unit or in any organization, we are working with people, right? So the personal resource that we have, our daily interactions. Sometimes what happens is you have to take an entire team on one page, and it's absolutely necessary. And it's absolutely have to be very quick. Sometimes you can already foresee some challenges that your team might not be seeing, in order to make them realize that these challenges could occur, and we need to be more proactive in our day-to-day
Okay.
approach.
Before you move on, I just want to add a point here so that it is clear to the people that it is all we want everybody on the team to be on a single page
Yeah,
consistently because we have a developed, designed, approved protocol which we have to follow, and there's no room for deviation from that. So everything
absolutely.
is already it
Mhm,
has already taken years to develop that single
mhm,
protocol only.
absolutely.
So it has, and it is also backed with all the preclinical studies and data as well. So you don't have this, flexibility that you can make changes with the schedule of the patients or dosing, or you can do anything. That's not the case in
We can
specifically in
exactly.
clinical trials.
So my, I guess, in all these 2 years, my only challenge was making my subordinate team, or
Hmm.
my the like the team that is under me, making them realize that this is a very very serious task that we are doing. I'm not saying that they don't realize the seriousness of the task or
Hmm.
the seriousness of their role, but sometimes what happens is they're not that much in depth.
Hmm.
They have not studied in depth the protocol, or they
Hmm.
have not developed such an in depth understanding of where we can deviate and where it can become a violation, or where it can become a
Hmm.
problem for us from the guidelines context. Right. So what happens is we have to continuously make sure that these things are not happening. And there was a time where I had to deal with people who had, I guess, no realization of what their actions can lead to, or how much of a deviation is allowed, how much of a deviation is not allowed. So I guess the understanding and the realization of how serious of how important their task is,
Hmm.
it took me some time to make them realize that we cannot do this, because of course, and normally there are doctors and there are other pharmacists or there are nurses in our team, and it's not exactly their fault. I understand that, because regular clinical practice is extremely different from what we require them to do in clinical research.
Hmm.
So there is a particular way that you have to, guide a patient. There is a particular way that you have to consult, or you have to uh, address the consent of a patient. There's a particular way that you have to document a particular
Hmm.
incident. So all of these things, it of course it takes them time to learn as well, and the way that we have to make them realize that this is something that we cannot,
Hmm.
uh, we cannot compromise on this. So
Right.
I guess that was one challenge, and I believe that was the only challenge. Of course, there are some day-to-day problems regarding patients and everything, but that's
Hmm.
part of every trial.
Right. So, can you also tell us a little bit about that these drug trials are also mainly about the safety and efficacy of that drug which they are developing? So, have you faced any challenges regarding the patient's safety and what precautions then you took, what steps, what measures you think can help a person who is working in a clinical trial to ensure that patient safety is in place? Because that's
Okay,
a
so yeah,
very
that's a
critical part
very,
of a trial.
very big part of our trial life, absolutely. So what happens is there are a lot of proactive steps that we take, because usually
Mm-hmm.
when we receive a protocol for studying, or when we receive a clinical trial, and we go through it. So a lot of things, after all these years, a lot of things just already come up to us from the written
Mm-hmm.
protocol. That, okay, fine, we have to make sure that patient care cost or patient care process is already in place. If it's an oncological trial, these things can happen. So what,
Mm-hmm.
at a hospital setting, generically, if I tell you, not particularly to one thing, but normally what we do is, number one, we list down the entire adverse event list in our ICF. ICF is informed consent form, so at least the patient would already know what can happen due to this drug. Right, that is step number one and very important. Number two is we provide them with a 24/7 hour number. Our study team, one of our study team is dedicated to have that phone. So we have a specific study phone. What happens is that they can message or call or contact anytime during the day. That is 24/7.
Okay.
And of course, I'm not going to say that someone is going to be promptly replying you at 4 a.m., but there have been cases where we were in contact with even 2 or 3 a.m. with the patients, because of course they had an emergency. It's always there. We encourage our patients to tell each and every, even if they are having a mild headache, they need to tell us that, we are having a mild headache. And this is after we took your drug and stuff. And number one. Number two, then we have all these systems in place. For example, if a patient develops a serious adverse event, something that cannot be handled or something that cannot be addressed at home. So what we do is we already have our in-house processes in place where we call the patient immediately. We have an understanding with our emergency department that, all right, this is how the patient will come. This is the patient. We will identify that patient with this kind of unique number and stuff, and they will be immediately admitted so that their emergency can be, or their emergent condition can be treated. And we try our best. And to be very honest, it is extreme. It is an ethical requirement as well. Until now, the sponsors do provide that kind of coverage, where the adverse event management coverage, and in case of an injury or in case of death or in case of any loss that is related to investigative product, that is also covered through insurance and everything. So we have a number of ways where we do cover a lot of patient toxic profile. Like, for example, sorry, drug toxicity profile, not patient, drug toxicity profile regarding that if something occurs, okay, fine, how are we going to address it? How our team will respond to it? And how are we going to bring the patient into the hospital and get it treated there?
Because I think it's very important part, as we are asking someone, and even though we are going through a process of informed consent, and we are making sure that that person is not being, uh, being pressurized to get into that
Yeah,
study.
no
That's
coercion at
totally
all, no influence, absolutely.
voluntarily their choice to get into. But at the same time, we have to make sure that their care is also, we have a process for that, and
Absolutely.
we are providing them services whenever they need, either it's in the emergency case or either they are suffering from any adverse event from that drug which they have signed up for. So yes, ethically as well, it's very important that these things are being taken care of. So at
Absolutely.
this point,
Just to add a
yeah,
small
yeah,
point, sorry, that
yeah, yeah.
I have seen and I have witnessed one of the best possible cares provided to patients through clinical trials. Things or treatments or medicines or investigative procedures that they weren't capable of either affording, or they weren't able to have that in Pakistan because of our regional restrictions. So, and through this clinical trial pathway, they were provided those best. Of course,
Yes.
there is an eligibility criteria that we have to make sure that the patient aligns with, but those who did align with that patient, or those who did fit that framework of eligibility criteria, alhamdulillah, they were provided with one of the best cares. And it's actually very heartening to know that we can, make a difference in someone's life at this
Yeah.
point, where they might be thinking, because I still remember, and I'm just remembering that one patient who came in a cancer trial, and literally their expressions were like, we have absolutely no idea how we are going to do it, because there's no other way. We cannot see a way. And when they realize that there is a way and a patient is eligible, it was extremely heartening to see how much of a difference that can make in patients' lives.
You're absolutely right. This is, I think, the best part of the clinical trials, that you can
Yeah,
directly see the impact it is creating on patients'
true.
life, and now how good it turn out to be for them.
Mhm.
Uh, all right. So at this point, I think people would have developed some interest in knowing about
I
this
hope.
field further. So, Sadia, what qualifications you think that a pharmacist, if he is a fresh graduate, he should be having? What qualifications specifically? What skills should be there to get into this field of clinical research?
All right. So if we talk about fresh graduates, so I believe
Mhm.
Doctor of Pharmacy is enough qualification to get into the field of clinical research. Of course, if you want to
Okay.
increase your education, and if you want to excel in a particular kind of
Hmm.
field, so of course there are many pathways. Like, you can enhance your credentials, you can enhance also your academic credentials. But
Hmm.
in order to get into the clinical research field, for Doctor of Pharmacy is quite a good qualification. I, to be very honest, also got infused on the basis of that. And basically, it, like, for example, if you are, it depends on what kind of clinical research center you are entering. So for example, if you are again entering into a BABE center, they'll have a different kind of hierarchy and organization structure. So, for example,
Mm.
you will enter it as a research assistant and then you can move up into a department. So, they'll have different departments assigned. They'll have a different clinical department. They'll have a different QC department. They'll have a different QA
Mm.
department. RD department is different. So, as per your interest or as per your inclination will be entered into, you enter into one department at a, of course, at a junior position, and then you move up into that department if you are still interested. For
All
example, if
right.
someone is interested in regulatory, so they'll be entering as research
Mm.
assistant, and then they'll move towards research associate, and then maybe assistant manager, and then manager. This is how it's done. For example, if you are more inclined towards laboratory skills or laboratory work, so there's also a pathway there. A lot of auditors from DRAP and also from Pakistan National Association of sorry, PNAC. I'm forgetting the entire. It's, I guess
Mm.
it's Pakistan National Accreditation Council. So a lot of auditors that are only auditing the clinical trial testing, drug testing in a lab are PharmDs. They have done that, and
Mm.
then they moved towards PhD in pharmaceutics or pharmaceutical chemistry, and now they're acting as auditors, and they're auditing multiple sites in a month and stuff. So
All
what
right.
happens is that if you have interest in the laboratory setting, that you can also join the clinical trial, the bioanalytical laboratories. There are a few of those in Pakistan, but still there are some, and people can join there. So everything that, so you have a little, the mode of work there is a little different. Basically, you are just involved in the testing, in the documentation, and in bioanalysis of drugs that are there, right? And if you are interested in coming towards a hospital setting, so what
Mm.
happens in within clinical research? So what happens is you can join CTUs, right? Clinical
Mm.
trial units. A lot of hospitals now, mashallah, in Pakistan have clinical trial units, and you can join there as a research associate. You will be, of course, in research, so as a research associate or even as a research pharmacist. So if you're
Mm.
joining as a research associate, you will be first exposed, or as a research assistant, you'll be first exposed to preliminary task of what happens in a clinical trial. Of course,
Mm.
you'll be joining at a junior position, but it depends on your learning capability and how easily you adapt and how much skills
Mm.
you develop in a time period. So, and then you can move towards research coordinator, senior research coordinator. There is more of a hierarchy above this as well.
Mm.
Like you can become project manager, you can become project lead, you can become research manager, everything like that.
All right.
Then there's
Okay.
also like quality assurance and regulatory lead and risk
Mm.
management lead and everything. So depends on the hierarchy of the organization
Right.
that you're joining.
So it
Yeah.
sounds that it is a very diversified field, right? So a
Absolutely. In fact,
PharmD can have
lately,
different.
sorry to cut you off, but lately I have noticed a lot of PharmD graduates, like, for example, you as well, going towards
Yeah.
public health, and still
Yes.
getting,
Yes.
staying attached with clinical research, because a lot of things involved in public health absolutely involves
True.
clinical research as well. I have seen a lot of people moving towards statistical analysis as well,
Mm.
epidemiological analysis, and so it's actually a very diverse field. And I believe that, to be very honest, I'm going to be very honest, Amara, um, considering Pakistan's uh, ecoculture, there
Mm.
are there are only a few ways that you can move,
Mm.
forward in a limited time. But I have seen that if you put enough time, efforts, and also the academic credential, like enhancing your academic credential, going towards a master's or going towards more advanced training or learning. So yeah, you can definitely move towards much diversified fields. And the problem is that a kind of, for example, if I can make you understand, a kind of a business opens up in
Mm.
Pakistan, and then it becomes saturated because everyone is just targeting that
Yes.
business. But the
Yes.
people who climb up the ladder really well, this is what I have learned, and this is what I have seen in the 10 years after my graduation, to be very honest. The people who climb up the ladder very well are those that actually realize and identify the gaps within that new business. Like clinical research was
Mm.
actually very new in 2017 and 18. Before that, Pakistan
Right.
did not have a large culture or a large framework or a platform of clinical
Mm.
research. But people who there was a there was a force of students, or there was a force of people who only targeted the world of clinical research, and then there were people who targeted that, or who realized that, okay, fine, what are the gaps?
Mm.
These things will be filled up, but where are the gaps? For example, there would be a gap. For example, there would be, maybe the sponsors are looking for people who can develop highly written, highly perfectly designed, advancedly designed protocols for them. So
Yeah.
there's a field of medical writing that actually,
Yes.
like, it just sounds like medical writing, but it's actually a very advanced field. You
Mm.
need to have understanding of a lot of things.
Right. So
Then there
I
is
think.
also CRO started as well, in the same
Mm.
way, where they realize that, okay, fine, investigators are there in hospitals, sponsors are there at manufacturing
Mm.
companies who are going to align them. who are going
I think
to
this,
streamline the process.
yes. So this actually helps to understand that clinical research, the future of clinical research. So it is leading to, I think, a very well taken care of ecosystem. I think now DRAB, now academic institutes, hospitals, CTOs,
Yeah,
CROs, they are now involved to actually develop this ecosystem of clinical research and clinical trials in Pakistan. So would it be right to say that it's a bright time to enter into this field? And because in future it's going to expand in Pakistan as well. So
absolutely, inshallah. It is a very good time to enter into this field. And again, it's a field of constant learning. There is nothing,
hmm,
it is not like a normal corporate job, to be very honest. This is my take on it. In the
right.
past few years that I've been in clinical research, started working as a person in clinical research, I don't think so. There came a point where I said that I've stopped learning. I have learned everything that
Mm,
there is because there is always a new kind of protocol in the market. There always is a new
yeah.
kind of design or a study design that is being there.
Hmm,
There's always there could be a pandemic that happened in our lives as well. There's always a kind of medical emergency happening elsewhere in the world.
hmm,
So what happens is the world of clinical research continues to adapt towards those changes. For
hmm,
example, now we are coming towards decentralized trials. Our
yeah.
guidelines have included, we could not even think that we can be a part of a clinical trial yet,
Yeah.
and also like be at our home and consenting towards that clinical trial, staying at our home. So a lot of changes, of course, with the kind of digital tools that we have, and we need expertise in all these fields. Like for
Yeah.
example, if you look at a protocol, of course it's a well developed book, but each section has been developed by an expert. And what I
Hmm,
believe is, rather than having experts, or rather than letting international people telling us how to design a clinical trial protocol, we ourselves should develop those skills. Then we
hmm,
know what kind of trial design requires what kind of mode, what kind of digital tools we will be having. The entire now system is, when we started clinical research, it was all paper based, and now in a
hmm.
few years we have
Digitally,
switched
yeah.
exactly towards digital tools, and all these
True.
tools that require continuous learning and AI and continuous
Hmm.
debugging and continuous. So there are a lot of ways different people from different fields can, come into clinical research.
All right. So
And
it
of
means
course,
that
even
it's a good time to enter this field and it's going to expand inshallah in
absolutely,
Pakistan as well, and it will be a
absolutely.
great learning opportunity for
Absolutely.
a
So
fresh
the more
graduate to
adaptable
start
you
with it.
are, the more open you are towards different opportunities, and
Hmm.
to continuously incorporate different parts of, a field in your own practice and in your skills. I guess the highly you are capable of moving forward
Right.
and having
Yes.
more
So
better roles.
right. So, Sadia, this is just extension from my previous question. So, I would like you to specify that what are the hard skills and soft skills that should be present in a person, or they can work on it when they are planning to get into this field. That you say that these skills are a must to have, or you should even try to develop it at least. So, yeah, then you can excel in this field. So, what could be those?
Yeah, okay. So I guess if we start with soft skills, for example,
Hmm.
so it's like the thing that I very particularly uh, focus upon within my team before starting work is communication. You
Hmm.
need to have communication skills, and there are ways of communication.
Hmm.
After entering corporate world, you realize that there is a particular skill of communication where you are communicating to your team or to someone higher up, and the way you communicate, the way you tell them that what is happening, and you need
Hmm.
to be consistent. Open communication should be there,
Hmm.
right? A lot of, unfortunately, because of our, I guess, society or something, a lot of people face a lot of problems in that. Sometimes the fresh graduates or the people who are joining the organization just after graduation, they are not very
Hmm.
open, or sometimes they're also fearful, they have anxiety,
Yeah.
or they are not extremely open to the idea of discussing everything on a table very confidently. Of course it develops in years, but open communication, try to openly communicate, try to timely communicate. There are a lot of
Hmm.
tools of communication now, to be very honest. It's very important for you to work in a team and have absolutely open communication. Then, for example, you need to, because clinical research is not a one-man person show, so it requires you to work in a team. You need to have
Hmm.
social skills. You need to have, skills where you interact with people. You need to have such personality. Like, for example, even if someone is an introvert, I guess adaptable personality is something that we can always develop. So
Hmm.
you need to know that, yes, I will be exposed to patients. I will be talking or interacting with people in our organization, our management, every kind of person is there to deal with. So yeah, I guess personality traits, normally these soft skills, communication style, and everything, these need to be there.
Matters a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And of course, some things you just sometimes you just develop a lot of things later as well as you move along. You understand that yes, fine, like teamwork is important, and uh, there are a little, for example, problem solving skills. Some people are like when there is a conflict or when there is a problem arriving, they're just stuck. That what do we do? What do we do? We
Hmm.
don't know what to do. So people need to work on that. That there's always a way around. There's always another solution. Just in your
Yeah,
reach.
you
You
have to
just need
look
to
for
see
it.
towards it. Yeah, time management is very important because a lot of things that are involved in clinical research need to be timely reported, need to be
They're
timely
very time
documented.
sensitive, actually. Yeah.
Exactly. They need, for example, even if you look into regulatory
Hmm.
documentation or regulatory submissions, there's a particular time, there's a particular deadline that you need to meet. So time management is always important. And to be very honest, yeah, I guess what was else? Okay, fine. I'm so sorry. Hard skills. So yeah, I guess hard skills are something that we can develop as we go. For example, it
Hmm.
depends on what kind of infrastructure you're joining. If a person, of course, is joining a biomedical lab, I don't think so that they'll be interested in what happens when we are submitting a study to trap. Right. So hard
Hmm.
skills are something that we can learn according to the technical requirements of our job.
Right.
And the more you spend time, the more you adapt, the more you learn, and the more skills you develop. For example, uh, to be very honest, I was fortunate enough to be a part of quality assurance department. So what happened with me
Hmm.
was that I had like I got best of both the worlds. I developed a deep understanding of what happens in a clinical research setting, right? What happens during the conduct of a clinical trial? Like how do you consent patients and how do you monitor and how do you
Hmm.
review the data and how do you make sure that the correct dosing is done? How do you report and how do you identify adverse events? So I was a part of that, and then because CBSR also had an analytical lab, so I also know that how do these drugs, how is like plasma is being separated from blood samples, how is the lab being maintained, how is the drug being tested, what kind of analysis is being done, what kind of method is being used, what kind of machine is being used. So again, I believe that technical or job specific hard skills are those that develop as
Hmm.
you enter into a
On
field,
job
and
training
then
would
exactly
help
on
you
job
if you just
training.
have, the
Absolutely, but
willingness to
again,
learn.
exactly the basic requirement is the willingness to learn
Hmm.
and developing. For example, you know and this is something that we are facing, although we are not much of an older generation, but with the newer generation coming
Yeah.
in, a lot of things being because of the digital age and stuff, a lot of things that were a little, I'm not going to say very hard, to be very honest, a little hard for us to attain or to have, it's easily being transferred to the younger generations. So what I
Hmm.
sometimes do observe is they don't question, or uh, they don't continuously strive to learn more. Like for example,
Hmm.
when I started working, I'm not glorifying or something, but when I started working quality assurance, so in a year I had realized that okay, fine, maybe these things need to be changed in our quality management system. Maybe we
Hmm.
can streamline the processes this, and why cannot we do that, and why cannot we do that? But since that the system is already there, it is digitalized, there are AI tools that are quick to answer, people have actually stopped questioning that how can we make it more easier, what is the way around
Hmm.
it. How can we find fine if we have to like walk 2 steps ahead, and if we have to make more of an effort, that's fine, but how can we make it easy,
Hmm.
more easy? So
Right.
I guess since they're already into an age where a lot of things are already just happening around them, so they stop questioning, okay, how can we enhance this project more, what can we do
Hmm.
more to understand this process? And I guess of course there's a lot of on job training, and there's
Yeah.
always the training and technical stuff that happens while you are on job, but then there's also self training and self
Hmm.
learning, right? So when I started working with guidelines, nobody asked me to download the grab guideline, or download the 170 or 25 guidelines, or download what is E3 or E9 or whatever. So as I went into the world of guidelines, I realized, okay,
Hmm.
fine, there's a separate guideline for this, and there's a separate guideline for risk management. And if I am
Hmm.
responsible for internal audit, then it's not just something that handed over to me. Okay, fine, you are going to be the person to perform the internal audit. No, I had to see what kind of guideline do I need to follow,
And just
and
to
that
add a
kind of
point
self
here,
learning,
yes.
yeah, that kind of self learning
Uh,
just came up from me.
yes, and I think it's very important to be well versed with these guidelines when you are working in clinical trials. Because again, as I said earlier, you don't have a room for deviation, you don't have a room for errors. It does happen, human error happen, but it is not appreciated that you were not aware of the guidelines. Just because of that you did that mistake. You should be very well versed and well aware of the guidelines, and you should be self study the protocol as well. You will be given the training, but you have to very good, must be having a very good
So
grip of
true.
the protocol you are going to
Absolutely.
follow.
Like, for example,
So
during the entire duration of a clinical trial, I have to consult that same protocol 250 times, like
yeah,
250
absolutely,
times. And
absolutely.
just consult it again and again. It's
Yeah.
literally like a book lying at your desk. So
Yes.
consult it again and again. If you
Yes.
have to go look up into a guideline, if you have to go look up into an appendix or something that, kind of a classification of how to classify this
Mm,
kind of adverse. So everything is there. You just need to know that, okay, fine,
yeah.
I can access it from here. I can look this
Absolutely.
up easily. And this is what
Yeah.
we are going to
Never
get.
make yeah, never make assumptions that, oh, maybe we have to do this at this time point. Never make assumptions. Better go
True.
through and consult the protocol multiple times. That's the best way
Absolutely. There are
to go for
institutional
it.
SOPs as well. There are institutional
Mm.
policies as well that are there all the time. Your seniors are there all the time. So I
I
guess
think
the more. Hmm,
yes. By now people would have this idea that clinical trials field is very well structured
absolutely.
field, right? You have SOPs, you have guidelines, you have protocol, you have already defined steps for everything or every
Absolutely.
process which is going to be involved, and you are supposed to be following that, right? You are
Absolutely. So true.
asked to follow it as
So
much as
there's
possible.
always, like, the material is present there. You just
Mm,
have to look towards it, that, okay, fine, and you are
yeah.
willing. There are some kind of people, of course, even at my when I joined, there were a few of my colleagues who were not interested in developing their skills.
Mm,
you know but if you're not interested in developing your skills, how will that particular field pay you back? Because
yeah.
when it comes to your skills, you are still stuck in the same first year.
Yes.
So you need to
Yes.
continuously develop, relearn, learn, and of course advance
Mm,
your skills. For example, you can have a master's in clinical research. People have get masters in a certain kind of clinical research and certain
mm,
kind of developing this or developing different kind of designing protocols and stuff. So yes, absolutely, you can always develop and learn and find a way that, okay, fine, this is what my calling is. But
mm.
again, even in clinical research, this is not something that that everyone can adapt to, because of course every person has a calling.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if
absolutely.
you feel like human research or clinical research is my calling, that yes, definitely this is a field for you, and you
I
can
think,
just constantly learn. The
yeah.
entire ecosystem of clinical research is changing every day, and you will find a
Mm.
lot of ways, a lot of diverse sections within the within the world of clinical research, where you find that, okay, fine, this
Where
is
you
my
can
calling,
make
this is
your
what I want
career.
to do.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Sada, can you identify any organization or any training spaces where these students or these graduates can go and just have a little bit, a familiarity with the clinical research or clinical trials, I must say. So would be great if you can identify such organizations or such networks
Mhm. So
online or
what
on
happens
site.
is, a lot of organizations, or a lot of clinical trial units, to be very honest, or centers that are working in clinical research, they offer internships, right?
Mm,
They offer short-term contractual positions where
mm,
you are a part of a certain clinical trial team at a research assistant position, or just a small short-term contractual position, but you are in the trial, like you are
mm,
in the team, and you go through all the processes, that, okay, fine, this is how it's done, this is how it's done, and you develop your skills. If you talk about CROs, they also have clinical trial associates or clinical trial assistants, and it's a small contractual position. It's open for 6 months or 1 year. 12 months, you just work there on contractual
mm,
basis, and you are there with the CRAs, going from site to site, seeing how they monitor, seeing what they do. There are also, like, a lot of clinical trial units also have contractual positions where you work for 6 months, 8 months, or 12 months, and you realize that, okay, fine, this is how the way is done. This is how the work is being done. If you talk
mm.
about bioanalytical labs, you can also intern over there. There are 3 months or 6 months. For example, ICCBS have a lot of internships. So I don't think so that clinical trial unit has an internship right now, but yeah, we do have a lot of contractual positions, even at junior level.
Correct.
That
Mm,
fresh graduates, or even I guess fourth or fifth year, if your curriculum allows it, you can join in on part-time basis and stuff. A lot of things can happen, of course, but definitely there are internships. If we are talking about uh, online research or online training modules. So of course there are websites like NIDA and CITI. Some of them are paid, some of them are free, where you can of course learn
mm,
about the guideline. But then again, it's about a guideline in particular. It's about a process, but it's all written on the screen. It's
mm.
not you are something physically a part of. So I guess, yeah, there are a lot of tools that you can move around if you
All
want to
right.
learn digitally or online.
Hmm.
And if you want to be a part of the system, then of course you can definitely join a clinical trial unit or any trial center. on a contractual
Okay.
or on a position.
Okay. So, Sadia, I think we're about to just close this session. But before that, I would like you to give an advice. What advice would you offer to these aspiring pharmacists who wants to work in clinical research? And what are your final thoughts regarding this particular area for pharmacists?
Sorry, Amar, can you repeat your question? I
Yeah, yeah,
guess
sure.
the voice
So,
just zoned
all
out.
right. So my question was that what advice would you offer for the aspiring pharmacists who want to, start their career with the clinical trials? Because clinical research is also very dynamic, and clinical trial is a part of it. So we'll stay with the clinical trials right now. So what advice you would give, and what
Okay,
would be your
I
final
guess
thoughts
the
regarding
same
this?
things, yeah. I guess the same thing that I said earlier. Just be ready and open to learn, to
Hmm.
quickly adapt, to continuously enhance your skills. You know, because
Hmm.
there's only a time till your current skills or till whatever you have earned or learned currently will work. So I believe every 3 or 4 years there are major changes happening in clinical research right now.
Hmm.
Um, Again, I would say back in 2017 or 2018, when it all started in Pakistan, there were no digital tools available, but now it's all
Hmm.
digitized. Even the regulatory authorities are coming towards the digital world. So I guess continuous learning, keep enhancing your skills, keep looking into ways how to enhance your current skills and also how to enhance processes at institutions. How
Hmm.
you can,
Contribute to
these
the
days, exactly these days,
organizations.
the new people coming in or the fresh graduates coming in, they have a lot of skills, they have a lot of understanding of AI and of digital tools. How do we incorporate them in a way that it is very regular? Like it addresses the
Regulated
regulatory
and
part as
yeah.
well. Exactly, it can be validated, it can be
Hmm.
traced and everything. So I guess the more we go forward, keep learning, keep enhancing your skills. Do not just stop at one place. You need to continuously monitor and you need continuously upskill that, okay, fine, this is how we are moving forward.
Thank you so much, Sadia. It was very insightful, very helpful
Thank you
discussion
so much.
we
I
had.
hope this helps
This is going to
someone.
help people,
Yeah,
and I think I'll share your LinkedIn link along with this, so
sure.
people, if they want to approach you and they want to ask more about how they can get or any certification or whatever they details they want to know, they can directly message you.
Sure, absolutely.
So again, thank you so much. I hope
Thank you.
it is a helpful step for the people who are
I hope
listening,
that too.
inshallah.
Absolutely.
Inshallah.
Absolutely. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much, Amar, for
much.
having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.